My name is Emery. I've never been one to shy away from romantic tales in which the male character utterly captivates the female lead. I was very happy when Lucas appeared with his lovely texts in the morning and his late-night calls inquiring about my day. I realized so quickly, almost laughably, that this was it. This is affection. My friends used to claim that we were destined to be together after taking one glance at each other. But then there was Grandma June, a wise woman who had lived through many seasons. "Watch the signals, Emery, honey," she would constantly say. "A man may not be merely in love if he demands all of your attention. It's possible he wants to control you." Nana's outdated views on men and their customs would make me laugh it off. Lucas was unique, or so I thought. There we were, reclining on my shabby couch on an evening that seemed like every other evening we'd spent together. When he inquired about my day, he squeezed my hand a little too tightly. "Met anyone interesting at work today?" he inquired. I would only tell him the highlights, omitting the less interesting details. "It's the same folks every day, you know that. And nobody fresh. Nobody showed any curiosity in you." Though his tone was casual, his grasp wasn't. "Why so curious?" In an attempt to lighten the situation, I gently withdrew my hand. "Just making sure we're good, that's all," he said, his eyes barely brightened by his smile. The TV was chatting away in the background as we drifted, breaking the stillness. I had felt this similar kind of little pressure numerous times before, but I had always been able to ignore it. My heart began to sink as Grandma June's comments started to creep back. That's a thin line, and I never really paid much attention to it. The evening stretched on. We sat there together, but my thoughts were far away, mired in the cautions of Grandma June and this knot in my gut that would not go away. Lucas stole some of my tranquility with him when he departed. After locking the door, I reclined and released the breath I had been holding. All alone myself in my flat, but for the murmurs of uncertainty that reverberated more loudly in the room he was leaving behind. I considered giving Grandma June a call, but it was becoming late, and I had to sort this mess out on my own. The microwave's digital clock began to flash in time with my discomfort, and that's when I understood there really is a narrow line between love and a cage. It was me who disregarded the warnings, mistaking them for flowers rather than the warning signs that they were. After saying, "I do," Lucas and I moved into my small house covered in ivy to begin our married life. However, as we got established things started to shift. We were sitting on our porch one evening when the aroma of the neighboring pine trees filled the air. "Who's that new guy working with you?" Lucas questioned, his voice cutting through the silence as his palm rested a little too firmly on mine. "That's simply David, I see. He works in the marketing division," I said in an attempt to appear impartial. He murmured, "Ma'am," and I saw the typical tightness in his jaw. That look, I recognized it as the same one he used to indicate that things wasn't quite right. Lucas's queries become more than just inquiries over time. They resembled probes, searching for something he appeared to be certain he would discover. He then began scrubbing my garments. I was choosing a dress for a brunch with friends on a Sunday morning. "That one's pretty," he added, gesturing to a garment with muted colors. I considered donning the blue one. "It's more upbeat," I proposed, gesturing to my best outfit, the one that gave me a little more sparkle in my eyes. He gave a head shake. "You would be too noticeable." It wasn't a suggestion. He urged, "Wear the other one." "But Lucas, it's just a dress," I responded, attempting to diffuse the situation. "Emery, just have faith in me. I'm keeping an eye on you," he added. However, it didn't feel like a gaze outside. It had the sensation of locking up. His tastes extended beyond my closet to our social interactions. Friendship dinners dwindled in frequency. My phone began to vibrate less, and soon enough, the invites completely stopped coming in. With a frown on his face, he collapsed into the couch next to me one evening. Mark gave me a call, wants to go out for drinks with us the following Saturday. Reaching for the remote, he added, told him we're busy. We are. Surprised, I asked. It'd been weeks since I last saw Laura and Mark. They were our couple friends, the people we frequently went on double dates with. Lucas turned the channels, avoiding eye contact. We don't have to see them all the time. I have you and you have me. Isn't that sufficient? The words caught in my throat as I hesitated. I knew I couldn't win the argument, but part of me was too fatigued to dispute with him and tell him that we were our own people. I repeated, that's enough, but it sounded like I was trying to persuade myself. This was my life now, a life Lucas thought he had the right to seize, a life where my speech and my clothes were my domain. And each time I released it, he would take a tiny bit more. I didn't know how much of who I was had been chipped away until I saw an old picture of me laughing with friends. I was losing chunks of myself. I wondered where the woman's grin had disappeared when I glanced at the photo. The problem about life is that it's a lot messier than you would think, particularly when love holds you down rather than releases you. Recently, our love has seemed like walls closing in on us, masked as simply another aspect of married life. That's how it's been with Lucas. His most recent vice, abruptly appearing at my office and acting as like he owned both the space and, in a sense, me. Just in the neighborhood, he would usually say, then flash an overly bright smile. I made the decision to go to work the following day, wearing my favorite pencil skirt one evening at home. Lucas entered the room with a tortured expression that made me tense up. His rage erupted over nothing as he growled, "Why do you need to wear that?" "Lucas, it's just a skirt," I remarked in a calm tone. "Not again, I wanted to fight." He rejected it. "It isn't just any old item. Who do you think you're clothing for?" His tone was a caustic remark, his suspicions open and shameless. "Lucas, I dress for myself." "Is that illegal as of late?" Even to my own ears, it seemed that I was reaching as I tried to justify my independence and my decision. When daylight came the next day, my skirt, the one I was going to wear, was gone. Not only that one item, but half of my clothes appeared to have simply disappeared. I felt a chilly wave of panic go over me, making me disoriented. With his back to me, Lucas was brewing coffee in the kitchen, just like any other day. "Where are my clothes, Lucas?" When I requested, my voice was tinged with fear and wrath. It was a mixture of feelings that made me seem more like a stranger than a wife. They were definitely not suitable. He spoke with an unnaturally calm tone, as if he were talking about the weather rather than my personal stuff. "I did us both a favor," he added. "Is it a favor? Is it possible to decide what I may and cannot wear? Are you in tune with your own thoughts?" My voice was filled with astonishment and dismay, and I was unable to conceal the fact that this was my reality. "Emery, it's for the best," she said. He responded by saying, "You'll thank me later," and the manner in which he said it, even though he seemed to know better, made my skin crawl. At the point where I was halfway through filling out the FLA form, the mask fell off, and Lucas's worry revealed its actual face: control. He was attempting to transform me into something that was smaller, more restricted, and less of a reflection of who I am. He was reducing my independence and my opportunities for choice. His remarks reverberated throughout the room as I sat at the kitchen table, and it dawned on me that my house, which had been a place of warmth and affection in the past, had transformed into something else. In spite of the fact that it was a beautifully furnished jail and the man I married was the warden, it was neither safe nor reassuring. The remainder of the day seemed to go by in a haze. Although I appeared to be a ghost at work, going through the motions and smiling when it was appropriate, a tempest was raging under the surface. I sat at my desk for a considerable amount of time, gazing at the images of my family that were stored on my phone, particularly the ones in which Lucas appeared to be the ideal spouse. At this point, it seemed as though they were scenes from the life of a separate lady. I sat in the car outside the home for a considerable amount of time that evening, the motor humming gently in the background. I wasn't sure I had the power to force myself through the door, but I did anyway. When I eventually turned the key and entered the building, the door made a creaking sound. It was then that I caught a whiff of the aroma of supper, and there was Lucas, all grins and kisses, acting as if today was like anything other. On the other hand, it was not, and the unfortunate part was that I was unsure whether or not tomorrow would be any different. During my time at work, my supervisor, Mr. Jacobs, placed a large file on my desk. "Emery, I have a new project for you to work on. You are the most qualified candidate for the position, but it is going to need some late nights." Despite the sinking sensation in my stomach, I managed to suppress a smile and said, "Mr. Jacobs, I am completely at liberty to enjoy myself." At dinner, I was the one who broke the news. The sound of Lucas's fork clattering across his plate caused his eyes to squeeze together into slits. "You'll quit," he said, his words having a clarity that was unmistakable. Last but not least, Lucas, giving up is not as simple as you make it seem. I am good at what I do, and yes, we do need the money, I told him, hoping that he would finally come to his senses and that the conversation would become more rational. He was clearly angry, as shown by the fact that his fists were balled up on the table. "No wife of mine will slave away for some boss's whims," he nearly screamed out. "I have no intention of doing so." Evelyn, his mother, stood at our table like a ghost at that same moment. She was always on cue and always shivering with some type of fear. That was the moment. She began by saying, "Emery, honey," while her hands were darting around like frightened birds, "can't you just ease up a bit for Lucas?" Although it was not proper in any way, shape, or form, I had loved him in the past, and I suppose that a portion of me still clung to that love. As a result, I chose to take the middle ground. Is it possible to reach a compromise? I will be working from my house. You can have the best of both worlds, right? This caused the wrinkles on Lucas's face to become less noticeable as he slouched back. "Fine," he said, nearly to the point of pouting, "but no late nights." At the same time that her pale eyes found mine, Evelyn smiled, expressing her relief and a whispered thank you. However, for me, I experienced a sense of confinement, with the walls being painted by Lucas's rage and Evelyn's fear serving as a frame. My world became my home office as the days evolved into weeks and the weeks turned into months. The fact that Lucas would occasionally peer over my shoulder and Evelyn would phone me in the middle of the afternoon to check in or check up, depending on the context, ensured that my leash was kept short. Because of the frenetic nature of my work, I was able to prevent my thoughts from traveling to negative areas. Not only was Mr. Jacobs a rough old bird, but he was also fair. He added, in a voice that was crackly but compassionate, "You're holding up the fort, Emery," during one of our phone check-ins. "Keep it up." When I go back to that particular evening, the sun had just sunk beyond the horizon, painting the sky with a variety of colors of blue that were worn out. While sitting on the couch with the remote in his hand, Lucas flipped through the stations without actually tuning into anything. As I shut down my laptop, my mind was exhausted from the hours of working with figures and emails. It was a weekday type of tiredness in my voice when I told him, "Work is done for the time being." The grunt he made was not a yes or no sound. It was merely Lucas's way of saying, "I heard you." After joining him on the couch, I found myself sliding into the cushion, feeling as exhausted as my bones. He then said, "You've been talking to Jacobs a lot about work." This statement came out of nowhere. I answered, "Yes, it's work, Lucas," continuing to keep my eyes on the television since I did not want to start another argument. "Mum," he murmured, the sound of gears grinding in his thoughts being a sound that became familiar to him. Those are the circumstances of my existence with Lucas, where the blindfold that my love was wearing only became tighter, and every stride forward seemed like 2 steps back. Her eyes were filled with questions that I was afraid to answer, and the lady who was looking at me in the mirror began to appear to be an unknown person. I was in need of transportation one day, and because Grandma's house was too far away for me to walk, I decided to call a taxi. When the driver arrived at my location, he was simply an ordinary person going about his business. He dropped me off, and that ought to have been the end of it. On the other hand, it wasn't. It was Lucas who was waiting outside the cab, and the sight of me getting out of the vehicle was enough to set him off in a major way. As soon as the driver had just about finished handing me my change, Lucas was already on him. "What's going on here, huh?" When Lucas snapped, his eyes grew large. "Who's this?" "Let's take it easy, Lucas. Not much more than a cab driver." When I attempted to interrupt Lucas, he was not going to have it. When the driver noticed that there was a problem, he did not lose a single second before putting the vehicle into gear and driving away. A really astute individual. After we had entered the building, Lucas continued to be irate. While he was walking back and forth, he cast accusatory stares in my direction. Uninterested in the drama, I let out a sigh. "You mean that, Lucas? You're getting worked up about nothing at all. It's not a trivial matter. Who can say for sure what you were doing inside with you?" The sound of Lucas's voice reverberated powerfully through the confines of our doorway. I gave a sigh of relief. "Get over yourself." As a result of it, things began to calm down, although not for very long. I was in the middle of preparing supper when I noticed Lucas looking through my phone. This happened a couple of days later. "What's up? Why do you believe you're acting in this manner?" As I grabbed the phone from his grasp, I let out a loud yelp. I was just. His voice drifted off, giving the impression that he was a child who had had his hand caught in the cookie jar. "Do you mind telling me what's so interesting in my phone?" I was starting to become really weary of this. Lucas sidestepped my gaze and scratched the back of his neck. "I'm not sure. I suppose I was simply making sure you weren't hiding anything by keeping an eye on you." I was hearing things that I couldn't believe. "Are you attempting to reach me? Are you serious at this moment? You feel that's acceptable?" He remained silent for a while before saying, "I apologize. Is everything okay?" "I apologize. Won't occur once again." "You're right. This is absurd, and it won't happen again. You're behaving in an insane manner." I was becoming impatient. I apologized. "Look," I said, "I made a mistake. Please pardon me." Now that his tone had loosened, it appeared as though he meant it. I took a long breath out. Yes, I was furious, but not to the point of discarding everything. Not quite yet. "All right, Lucas, this is it. Put an end to your jealous child persona. You need to gather yourself." He gave a too enthusiastic nod. "Yes, without a doubt. I swear." That was where we ended things. I wanted to think that things would turn around. Even though I knew it was unlikely, I couldn't help but be optimistic. That must be the way things work sometimes. Despite seeing caution signals and red flags, you choose to ignore them in the hopes of finding an alternative route. It all began one clear morning when I observed an automobile. It was an unremarkable dark sedan that was suspiciously tidy and still. From my kitchen window, I could see it parked on the adjacent street. Not a huge deal, I reasoned. Most likely, it's merely a visit to someone. However, I noticed it once again in the parking lot of the grocery store, where it was just seated a few aisles away. And next to the dry cleaner once more. Car and location were similar, like a lost penny that kept popping up. After a week, I was unable to ignore it any longer. I had to find out. So I took a detour on my way home one day when the automobile followed me to the neighborhood library. The automobile was indeed still there, following my maneuvers, staying at a safe distance, but always there. The vehicle came to a stop a short distance behind me as I pulled onto a side street. This was no accident. It's strange how, despite something being right in front of you, your mind refuses to accept that it is wrong. It looked so ridiculous, like something from a cheap mystery drama, but there it was. My heart was pounding, and I was feeling angry and afraid at the same time. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police number. I said, as if the man behind me could hear. "I think I'm being followed." It was taken seriously by the police. They moved immediately to examine the man's ID and spoke with him in the car. They verified my suspicions in a matter of minutes. The man was, in fact, a private investigator, and he was indeed pursuing me, accompanied me on my husband's credit. When I came home, I was trembling and holding the police report tightly. That's Lucas, contentedly oblivious to the fact that his little game was over as he lounged on the couch like it was any other evening. "Lucas," I cried out, opening the door more than I had meant to. "What the hell is this?" Startled, he leaped to his feet, his eyes flashing as always when he's on the back foot. "Emery, I'm a private detective, Lucas." My voice was trembling so much that I was having trouble speaking clearly. "You have me followed." His cheeks heated and smirk as he stammered out some apology. "Avoid." I stopped him and held out a hand, saying, "Just don't." I was not going to listen to whatever falsehood he could make up. "What do you know? I'm not capable of doing this." Even when my voice cracked, I managed to gather myself. "You need to leave, Lucas." He closed his mouth abruptly. It appeared as though he might argue, then he changed his mind. Without further word, he simply picked up his coat and walked out. It was the first time in years that I didn't feel afraid of being completely alone. It was the most sincere thing I have felt in a long time. It had been a strange start to the day. After telling Lucas to pack up his belongings and go, I was still getting used to a quieter house. Quiet wasn't one of the many things the man was. Though I must admit, it was also a little unsettling. The quiet was broken like a fallen dish when there came a knock at my door. Lucas's employer, Mr. Freeman, was there. He was of average height and constantly gave off the impression that he was starching both his face and his shirt. I've never really liked him, but he showed in today carrying a folder full of documents. "He's not here," I informed him prior to his entering. Mr. Freeman scowled, clearly unaccustomed to doors that did not open for him. "I have some crucial paperwork for him, work-related items." I exhaled. We would be living in a luxury if Lucas had a $1 for every time he made a difference. "Yes, he isn't present. When he gets back, may I give these to him?" Mr. Freeman nodded after giving it some thought. "I guess. Please allow me to briefly enter. I've spent hours behind the wheel." I suppose his automobile was as elegant as his outfit, with its glossy black exterior. Indeed, I reasoned, why not? I gestured toward the kitchen and urged him inside. "Please have a seat. Do you want a cup of tea?" He collapsed like a bag of grain, exhausted from either life or the road. It was difficult to say. "Tea would be good, thank you, Emery." As per my professional routine, I switched on the kettle and added some leaves to the pot. I used to like being the kind host. It was at that moment that I noticed something through the kitchen window. Flames circling Mr. Freeman's automobile as though it were a celebration. I pushed Mr. Freeman's half-made tea in his direction. "Your car." After we hurried outdoors, my divorced husband Lucas was grinning as though someone had bought him a surprise cake on his birthday. Like flames, the madness in his eyes glinted. "My car," Mr. Freeman cried out. "What on earth is going on?" Lucas turned to face us, a flutter of a smile. "Hi, Emery. I'm taking my life, that's why. Say welcome to your beloved," he said, his voice slurred with a good measure of madness and joy. He believed he was exacting revenge on an imaginary romantic partner of mine. Mr. Freeman's expression went from bewilderment to rage as he stood still. "Lucas, did you do this?" When Lucas finally realized what was going on, his smile vanished from his face quicker than ice cream on a sweltering day. His supervisor, his spouse, his error. "Boss, I didn't know." Mr. Freeman interrupted him. "You thought my automobile belonged to someone, so you set it on fire." "Lucas, God, the paperwork for the contract renewal was with me. Now consider them ashes along with your employment. You're through." Quicker than a bag of those identical papers, Lucas went on his knees, groveling like a child whose hand got stuck in the cookie jar. "Please, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Freeman said, "Save it," in an icy tone. "I'm calling the police." It took the sirens no time at all. Neighbors, police, and a few others pointing phones at us like we were cheap entertainment for the evening packed the street like a clogged faucet. I felt like 100 weights lifted off me when the policeman put cuffs on Lucas's wrists, his knees still caked from the driveway. One fire out, the remainder to be cleaned up. Mr. Freeman simply shook his head while glancing at the former automobile. The last thing I saw of Lucas was him straining to peer over his shoulder at me, his terrified, bunny-eyed gaze. It seemed weird to walk into my living room. The ordeal with Lucas was nearing its conclusion. I informed him that the divorce papers were filed and asked him to leave. It was clear he didn't listen since he was now facing jail time for both following me and setting fire to his boss's car. Mr. Freeman, the boss, wasn't too fond of his automobile being grilled. After firing Lucas, he filed a lawsuit against him. I couldn't help but feel like a weight was lifted off my shoulders as I stood there. "Emery, honey." From the kitchen came Grandma June's summons. "You need anything?" Shaking my head, I entered to greet her. Grandma June had a knack of cutting right through bullshit. "Gran, I'm good, but I should have listened to you about Lucas." Turning around, she was at the sink using a dish towel to dry her hands. "Oh, honey, when will you learn to trust this gut?" She laughed and patted her tummy. I couldn't contain my laughter. She was very honest all the time. I concurred, saying can't argue with Grandma's gut. I flipped through a magazine while sitting on the couch after that, but I wasn't actually reading. It was noise alone. Once again, I felt more confident than I had in some months. This was the wise course of action. Of course, tomorrow would bring new challenges. Attorneys sorting through the mess left by Lucas, financial matters. But it was just me tonight. I took out my phone and sent a text to Mara, who has been my best friend for ages. "At last free. Would you like to interrupt my alone time?" It was not long before she responded in kind. "I'm headed that way. Delivering pizza." It was going to be a simple night for the remainder. Not a drama. Not you, Lucas. Just nice company, crappy TV shows, and pizza. At last, I could breathe, so I pushed my hair back and slipped into my coziest sweatpants. Even if it wasn't quite evident yet, the future seemed far better than the past I had. As I considered it, I grinned to myself. It was simple, had no conditions, and eliminated the need to trade carefully. Yes, this was the way it was going to be going forward, beginning with the new locks engaging now. I was quite okay with the fact that freedom tonight tasted a lot like pepperoni and cheese.
Hello, my name is Bianca, and I'm 30 years old. The past year has been nothing short of a nightmare, and I'm still recovering from everything. I've been lurking here and reading so many stories, so I thought I'd give it a go and share mine. My story begins with my ex-husband, Shane. I met Shane right after I graduated from college. I had just secured a pretty good position at a well-known company, and Shane and I worked in the same department. He was assigned to be my mentor. The more time we spent together, the closer we got, and I found myself developing strong feelings for him. It turned out he felt the same way about me. I was concerned about company policies and wasn't sure if we would be allowed to be together. But our company was fine with it as long as we didn't let our relationship interfere with work and maintained a professional demeanor. We were happy to comply, and we started dating. Shane was an amazing and charming man throughout our relationship. We dated for about a year and a half before deciding to move in together. I own my own house, thanks to my parents' help, so Shane moved in with me and things were going great. After about 3.5 years of dating, Shane proposed to me and I was thrilled to say yes. The thought of spending the rest of my life with him brought me a lot of joy. We got married in a small, intimate ceremony 6 months after he proposed. Aside from our relationship, my career was soaring. I was bringing in a lot of new clients, which resulted in bonuses and raises. However, I slowly began to notice that Shane was behaving oddly towards me. Whenever I tried to talk to him about it, he brushed me off. After observing him more, I realized he was just jealous that I was earning more money and was more successful than him. I was hurt and upset that Shane viewed me as competition, but I figured he couldn't help how he felt, so I decided to try and help him at work. I gave him some pointers and even helped him secure new clients. He didn't take it well and lashed out at me, accusing me of demeaning him by implying he didn't know how to do his job. So I backed off and let him handle his work. This all happened about a year into our marriage. After Shane lashed out at me, I spent the next few months pouring myself into my work. Our boss announced a promotion opportunity for anyone who brought in the highest number of clients. I wanted that promotion to make life easier for Shane and me. One day, after my shift, my boss called me into his office and told me I was getting the promotion. I was overjoyed and rushed home to tell Shane. Shane had the day off, so he had no idea what had happened. When I got home, I was greeted with a lovely meal. "How was work today, sweetie?" he asked. "I used my free time to make a nice dinner." "That's really sweet," I replied. "I have some great news to celebrate, so I bought us some good wine." "Wow, that's an expensive bottle." "What's the big news?" Today, just before work ended, I was called into the boss's office and told I was getting the promotion. The big promotion everyone's been wanting. Yeah, apparently I outperformed everyone. "We're going to be rolling in money," Shane said. "Seriously, how did you outperform everyone?" "Well, I guess I just worked as hard as I could. You saw how much effort I put in these last few months. I was constantly exhausted for a reason, and I guess it just paid off." "Hold on, are you jealous of me?" No, I'm just a little bummed that I didn't get promoted." "But does it really matter which of us gets promoted? We're both benefiting from it. My money is yours after all." "Sure, but it's not the same." "You cannot seriously be upset at me. I just wanted us to celebrate this big accomplishment. Can we please focus on that?" "You're right," Shane said. "Why don't we have an even bigger celebration than this, huh?" "What do you mean? How about I throw you a huge party for your promotion? We'll invite all our families, colleagues, and bosses." "Are you sure? That sounds wonderful, but wouldn't that be like rubbing salt in your wound?" I asked. "Nah, I'll be fine. Look at you worrying about me instead of celebrating. Besides, I think I have an idea for a great present to give you." "Oh, what is it?" "I shall give it to you in front of everyone at the party. But for now, how about we have ourselves a nice dinner?" I will admit that I was a little upset when Shane let his emotions get in the way of showing his appreciation for me, but he really turned himself around when he decided to celebrate with me. Over the next few weeks, Shane poured himself into planning a party for my promotion. It might be bad to say, but I was surprised that Shane wasn't behaving jealously. I was just grateful that he was appreciating me for once. Shane spent a lot of time outside the house while planning my party. He told me he couldn't contain his excitement and wanted it to be a surprise, so he had been going over to his mother's place to talk about it. Now, Shane's mother, Wendy, and I had a pretty cordial relationship. We weren't super close, but she was a nice lady. On the day of the party, Shane told me he was running a little late because he mistimed his surprise. But he sent me to the venue and had Wendy meet me there. I was genuinely floored when I entered the venue. It was a pretty big hall, beautifully decorated. When I walked in, everyone clapped for me, and I was congratulated by a lot of people. As I was talking to one of my colleagues, Wendy bumped into me and accidentally spilled her wine on me. "I'm so sorry I spilled on your dress. I'm so clumsy on my feet, and I've been nervous about coming here for so long. I guess that made me spill on you." "It's all okay. Don't worry. I'll just have my assistant get me an extra dress." "Wait, why don't you come to the side and let me see if I can do something?" "No, I don't think anything will help. Please, I feel really bad for what I did. At least let me try." "Okay, fine." Wendy pulled me aside, her expression serious. "I needed to tell you something important." "What do you mean?" "I need you to tell your security guards to prohibit my son's entry at all costs." "What? Why?" "Shane has been upset that you've been getting so successful. He's been ranting to me about it for so long. Surely you noticed that he was constantly over at my place." I knew he was upset, but I didn't think it was because he was jealous. With every day that passed, his anger only grew. When you told him you were getting a promotion, he lost his mind. But why would he arrange this promotion party in the first place? Because he's planning to embarrass you in front of your boss and colleagues. How? He plans on bringing in some false documents and showing them to everyone to prove that you didn't deserve your promotion. Why would he be that jealous of me? I have no idea. All I know is that he is one angry and jealous man. He will not stop at anything to get what he wants because he wants to be the one who's doing better. I tried my best to stop him today, but he refused to listen. Okay, I need time to process all this. I really get that, but you need to inform your security guards not to let him in at all. Yeah, okay. Thank you for having my back. Of course, sweetie. I couldn't believe what Wendy was telling me, but deep down I knew that what she was saying made sense. Even though my heart was telling me not to listen to Wendy, my instincts were telling me otherwise. So I informed the security guards not to let Shane in. While waiting for Shane to call me, likely to ask why he wasn't being allowed in, I decided to snoop around and see if I could gather any evidence. I approached the man in charge of the projector and told him that I was with Shane. I said Shane asked me to go through what was to be projected, and he let me see what was on the USB that Shane had given him. Wendy was right. There were hundreds of fake documents that, if shown to my bosses, would put me under investigation and lead to suspension. Not to mention, I could have lost my job. I was furious. I kept the USB and told the man to forget about projecting anything else on the screen. After a little more hunting and asking around, I managed to find all the people who would help him, like servers and those in charge of the audio. I had them all write down and sign statements saying they were hired by Shane to do something against me at my party. About an hour after Wendy warned me, Shane called. Bianca, what the hell's going on here? What do you mean? I'm not being allowed in. Apparently, security guards got strict instructions from you to not let me in. Yes. Why don't you head home and we can discuss things there? Why? I wanted to celebrate your big day with you. Look, I don't want to deal with you right now. I know what you've been up to, and I really don't care enough to talk about this over the phone. Are you serious? Do you even know what you're doing? I definitely do. Go home, settle down your jealousy and insecurity. I knew something was wrong, and you refused to speak to me about it. I've had enough of you trying to steal my spotlight. You will pay for this later, but for now I just want to have fun. What are you talking about? Why would I ever do something like that to you? I have heard about your plans, Shane. Who are you trusting more than me right now? Not to mention, I saw what you had planned on the USB you gave the person working the projector. Wow, so you were snooping just to prove yourself right? Do you even have any trust in me? Of course I did. But after tonight, any semblance of trust I had in you has vanished. You can't blame me for it. It's not like you weren't rubbing my face in your accomplishments all the time. I wasn't rubbing your face in anything. I was just sharing my accomplishments with you because you are my husband. I'm sorry I expected you to share in my joy instead of getting jealous. If I did the same thing to you, you would have behaved the same way. I would at least talk to you about it. I would never try to publicly humiliate you or ruin your career. You know what? I actually don't want to see your face for a while. I will see you in a few days. Bianca, you will come back home as soon as your party's done. Or so help me God. If you threaten me, I will never return. Bye. The very fact that Shane had the audacity to threaten me made me see red, but I calmed myself down and decided I was going to enjoy my party regardless of the fact that it was all a ruse to start my downfall. I had a blast, and at the end of the night, I went to Wendy's place. Of course, Shane contacted her, but she told him to stay away from her for a little while and asked him to give me some space. Over the next week, I filed for divorce and waited until I had the papers to go back home. Once I had them, I went back home and was greeted by Shane. You're home finally. Don't try to act happy. I'm not acting. I really missed you and I wanted to apologize for my behavior. You think an apology is enough, Shane? You wanted to destroy my career and my reputation all because you were jealous and insecure. I was just not in the right headspace. That's not even a reasonable excuse. You have to understand, I was struggling a lot. You were being looked at for all the big projects and promotions, even though we were doing the same work. We may work in the same department, but there's a huge difference between our work. Are you saying that I'm not good at doing my job? You said it, not me. Maybe instead of targeting me, he should have thought about why I was getting looked at for everything. I didn't have to actually look at anything. You are a woman and you were just using your wiles to get whatever you wanted. Wow. Do you even know how much revenue I brought in just in the last 3 months? I brought in triple what you did, and I did all my business over emails and calls. How do you suppose I worked my feminine wiles, huh? You must have done some sort of trickery. There's no way that you did so much in so little time. There's a reason I wanted to expose you. And you wanted to do that using fake documents? I couldn't find any actual records, so of course I had to fake some. There's no reason for you to be that much more successful than me. I had to take you down a peg. You really are a piece of work, you know that? You were willing to put down the woman you love all because you let your insecurities get the best of you. They are not insecurities, and I'm not jealous, but you have no idea how embarrassing it is to have your wife earning more and being more successful than you. I've been the butt of jokes for so long. Who is making fun of you, Shane? Who? My friends, the ones I meet up with every other weekend. Wow. So instead of dropping your unsupportive friends, you decided to sabotage your loving and supportive wife. You know what? I can't keep doing this anymore. Here, I'm divorcing you. You can't leave me. I only made one mistake, and I apologize for it. This one mistake of yours nearly cost me my career and reputation, and you didn't sound apologetic at all. You were just justifying your actions without even apologizing. You clearly still don't see anything wrong with what you did. Besides, you showed me where your priorities lie, and I'm not even a priority. I'm someone that you have to be better than. I don't think that's a healthy relationship, and I want nothing to do with you. You think this is over? I will ruin you for leaving me. Give it your best shot. I could not believe how dense Shane was. He really did not see why he was wrong and believed what he did was one small mistake. I grabbed my things again and made my way over to Wendy's house, but not before telling Shane he had a week to leave my home. I didn't care where he went, but he needed to be out. Of course, people at work figured that something was seriously wrong between Shane and me, so before the rumors started spreading, I decided to inform everyone that we were getting a divorce. I never told him the reason, but Shane decided that he wanted to ruin my reputation, so he began spewing lies about my morals. He told everyone that I had barred him from entering my party because I didn't want him to steal my spotlight and that I was selfish and jealous. I did not actually plan on ruining Shane's career, but after what he did, I decided to go ahead and show everyone proof of what he planned to do. I emailed our bosses and HR the documents he planned to show everyone along with signed statements from those he hired to help him carry out his plan. I also informed them about the lies that Shane was spreading within the office, leading to lesser productivity on my part and the office in general. It didn't take long for our bosses to decide what was happening. The next working day, Shane was called into the boss's office and was fired. Nothing was funnier than watching him exit the office with his head down. I had an inkling that he lost his job, but I didn't know for certain. My confirmation came when Shane called me shortly after he left to yell at me. "What did you do? What do you mean? Don't try and act as if you don't know what I'm talking about. I know that you're the reason I lost my job. You lost your job. Do not try and act innocent. Well, I'm not confirming or denying anything to you, but you have to admit that there would have been a conflict of interest if you continued to work with us. How dare you? I only attempted to ruin your career. I didn't actually do it. You didn't have to ruin mine. If I remember correctly, didn't you threaten to ruin me for leaving you? I couldn't take my chances, so I protected myself. So you did get me terminated? Well, not only were you a bad employee, but you were also actively harassing and planning the downfall of your colleague and wife. That violates all kinds of work ethics and does not represent the values of the company. Don't throw me all that nonsense. Well, let's just say that I was so upset with you trying to sabotage me that I got you fired. Maybe your tiny brain would be able to understand that. But why? I did nothing wrong. Right, but you could have. Nothing stopped you when we were happily married. So what would you have done when we got divorced? Wouldn't you have tried to do much worse things? I just approached HR with my concerns, and when they had to make a decision between me and you, it wasn't really a hard one. You've ruined my life. I will make you pay for it. I'll take you to court and make your pockets bleed dry. Yeah, and I'm sure that the jury would love to see the evidence of you trying to sabotage my career because you were jealous. That's enough now. I'm tired of listening to you. Goodbye, and do not contact me unless it's through your lawyer if you're contesting the divorce. I was glad that I was able to get the exact reaction I wanted out of Shane. That would teach him not to mess with anyone. Besides, I was not kidding when I said that his career in the company was dying anyway. I was just glad that I was the reason he got thrown out. Shane did try to contest the divorce and get me to pay him alimony because he reasoned that I was the reason he lost his job. Well, I had both evidence of him trying to sabotage my job and statements from my bosses, colleagues, and his mother stating the same. Let's just say the jury definitely did not see the point in his argument. The divorce trials went on for a long time. After it was ruled that I would not be paying him any alimony, Shane wanted to divide everything we owned, down to our spoons and forks. I tried my best to level with him, but he was not having it. I didn't see why he was drawing it out so much, considering he was losing a lot of money himself. I was actually doing pretty great. Finally, I decided to settle and give everything that he wanted, within reason, of course. I still got to keep our house considering it was my name on the deed and title. But for every other thing he wanted, including our bed, I gave it to him. I had more than enough money to afford new things anyway. By the time our divorce was finalized, Shane was pretty much destitute. He was couch surfing at multiple friends' places who eventually all grew tired of him when he stopped searching for jobs. Wendy refused to help him out, so he cussed her out until she had enough and blocked him everywhere. Eventually, when he realized he had nowhere to go, he came crying to me and begged me for help. I refused to help him out because I did not want to be entangled with any of the shenanigans ever again. Last I heard, he's crashing at his aunt's place and finally found a job somewhere. As for me, I'm living a really good and comfortable life right now. Sure, I still feel pains of sadness at what I lost with Shane, but I keep reminding myself that I wouldn't have such a good life if I still had Shane with me. I've been getting therapy to deal with my grief, loss, and anger, and I can happily say that things are going well. Wendy, of course, took it upon herself to make up for her son's actions, but once I had a proper talk with her, she stopped doing that. Now she's become one of my closest friends and a mother figure to me. It'll be a long while before I trust a man again. But until then, I get to spoil myself and enjoy the best life that I can. Hey there, my name's Sophia. I'm 29 years old, and I recently gave birth to a child. However, that birth didn't happen without my mother-in-law nearly killing me. I know I sound crazy, but let me explain. Let me start by telling you a little more about my husband, Adrian. We met in college and started dating almost immediately. It was love at first sight, and I knew he was my forever. We had an amazing connection. Nobody understood me the way he did. After we graduated, we moved in together. While I had no complaints about Adrian, I did have several issues with his mother, Becky. Adrian and his family moved to my state from Missouri when he was 12, and they all have endearing Southern accents and different behaviors. I initially excused Becky's horrible treatment of me by attributing it to cultural differences. Becky hated me from the start, mainly because I had taken her precious son away, and also because the rest of Adrian's family adored me. I hadn't done anything special. I just listened to them and remembered what they said for our next meeting. They felt I genuinely cared about them, which I did, boosting my reputation. Becky couldn't stand it and constantly made snide remarks at my expense, belittling all my achievements. When people started defending me, she began doing it in a way only I heard. Adrian quickly stopped this by always being by my side. After about 7 years of dating, Adrian and I decided to tie the knot. We had a small, intimate ceremony, and it was the happiest day of my life. Becky did try to cause trouble, but we quickly shut her down by telling her to behave or be thrown out. After we married, my bond with Adrian's family only grew stronger. Whenever his relatives visited, they stayed with us instead of in hotels, which infuriated Becky. She tried to sabotage me, but no one cared or they stood by my side. It got to the point where Adrian's relatives refused to interact with Becky without us being present. It turned out Becky was horrible to not only me but to her family as well, which was why they preferred spending time with us. 3 years into our marriage, I started experiencing strange abdominal pains. At first, I brushed them off, but they happened randomly, and something told me to get them checked out. It turned out I was 4 months pregnant, which was a huge shock because I didn't look pregnant at all. The weight I gained, I had attributed to the holidays. I was excited to tell Adrian, so I made a fancy dinner and brought out a good bottle of wine. "Welcome home, sweetie," I greeted him. "Whoa, what's going on here? What's with the fancy dinner?" he asked. "Why don't you sit down first? I have some news to share with you." "Okay, should I be worried?" "Absolutely not. In fact, I think you're going to be really happy." "All right, I'm excited." "Spill." "So, you know how I've been having weird pains in my stomach?" Aha. Well, I went to the doctor today and she ran a few tests. It turns out my stomach is completely normal. Oh, what was it then? Turns out I'm pregnant. What? Oh my gosh, are you serious? The best part is that I'm 4 months along. What? How is that even possible? It's called a hidden pregnancy, and I haven't had any other symptoms. I had relatively short periods, but I didn't think that was abnormal. The pains I was feeling were just kicks. Oh my god, this is big news. I'm so happy. Me too, and this couldn't be happening at a better time. We're finally doing well financially, and I was going to ask you if we could start trying. Anyway, we're going to have to tell everyone about this. I'm worried about how your mother will react. What do you mean? You know how much she hates me. She hates that everyone loves me. I'm worried that with the pregnancy announcement, I'll get even more attention and she'll hate me even more. If you're okay with it, I'll have a strong word with her about her behavior. You don't have to worry about a thing. The only thing you have to do is enjoy being treated like a princess. I would like that talk and the princess treatment. I say we wait until we find out the baby's gender before we have a celebration, though. I love that idea. Now, let's have a little celebration of our own. Adrian and I were over the moon about my pregnancy. We hadn't made any concrete plans, but we had set aside some savings for when we eventually wanted to have kids. We waited another month before telling our families the good news. My family was overjoyed, and so was Adrian's, well, except Becky. Surprisingly, she barely reacted except for scowling at us. We decided to have a gender reveal party at our house. Planning a backyard barbecue and inviting both our families, we chose the traditional cake-cutting method and discovered we were having a boy. I was so happy and eager to start decorating the nursery. At the party, I was treated like a queen, with everyone giving me attention and asking questions. I felt on top of the world. At some point, though, I noticed Becky wasn't around. After asking around, I found out she was inside the house. I went in to find her at the top of the stairs. Becky, what are you doing here? The party's downstairs. Oh, I'm just trying to find proof. Proof of what? Of your lies. Excuse me? What lies? Come on now. Nobody believes you're really pregnant. You're too tiny to be 7 months along. Every woman experiences pregnancy differently. Just because I'm not as big as you expect doesn't mean I'm not pregnant. Don't lie, you just want everyone's attention. Why would I fake a whole pregnancy just to get attention? And why would I want attention in the first place? I know you're kind. You're jealous that my son pays me attention when I come over, and you want to take that away. Becky, I think you're projecting your feelings onto me, and I don't appreciate it. I have no need for attention because I naturally get it. You're trying to steal from me, and I do not appreciate that. Look, you're stressing me out, and that's not good for the baby. I'm just going to go. Stop trying to steal the spotlight. No one gives a darn about you. What are you? The last thing I remember was her pushing me down the stairs. I felt excruciating pain before passing out. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed with a tube running into my hand and pain in my abdomen. I had no idea what had happened. But thankfully, Adrian was sitting right beside me, asleep in his chair. I coughed a little, waking him up immediately. He looked shocked and relieved to see me awake. Sophia, you're awake. Thank God. What? What happened? You fell down some stairs. Are you sure? Yeah, I have some really bad news, and I need you to be as calm as you can. Oh no, how's my baby? Don't tell me something happened to my precious child. Sophia, sweetie, calm down, please. You lost a lot of blood, and we're struggling to find a suitable donor. But what about my baby? I need to know if my baby is okay. Because of how much blood you were losing, they had to induce labor. You gave birth, but how's the baby? I need to see him. He's in the NICU. He's in good hands. You have nothing to worry about. There's nothing more you can do. Don't blame yourself for anything. Once we get a donor for you, we can focus on our child, okay? Yeah, but I'm not blaming myself. Good. I have someone else to blame. What do you mean? I'll let you know, but could you please bring your mother down here? Why? Just please don't ask questions. I'm going through enough. Bring her here and tell her everything that happened in front of me. I'll explain everything else after. Okay, but first let's get you your blood, and then we'll do everything else you wanted. Yeah, okay. Adrian went to talk to my doctor, and thankfully they found a donor who was willing to donate immediately. The stress of everything made me fall right back asleep after the blood transfusion. I had so many emotions swirling through me and I didn't know what to make of them. On one hand, I was grateful that my son was still alive, but I also knew he might grow up with some developmental issues. I didn't have a problem with that, but knowing Becky was the reason my son struggled made me feel hot with anger. I was asleep for a good 3 hours, and when I woke up, I felt much better. Once again, Adrian was next to me and immediately rushed to my side when I woke up. "Hi, sweetie. You fell asleep for a little while. How do you feel right now?" "A lot better." "How's our son?" "They've managed to stabilize him. He'll have to be in the NICU for the next 2 months. Will I be able to hold him?" "Not yet, but soon, I promise. Until then, we will definitely get to see him. I saw him, and he looks adorable." "All right, I'm glad that everything's okay. But you wanted to see my mom, right?" "Oh yeah. Is she here?" "She's waiting outside. Shall I bring her in?" "Yeah." Adrian brought his mother into the room. "Hi, Sophia. How are you?" Becky asked, her tone dripping with insincerity. "Not doing so good." "Adrian, did you update her on what happened?" "No, he didn't tell me anything. He just asked me to rush here," Becky replied. "Adrian, could you tell her what happened since I got here?" "Well, Mom, after you came running to us about Sophia slipping down the stairs, she ended up bleeding a lot. She had to be induced so she could give birth to the baby. Thankfully, the doctors and nurses managed to stabilize our son. He's just going to be in the NICU for a while now." "Oh, you gave birth, Pearl. Congratulations," Becky said, feigning delight. "Don't even. Do you have something to say to me and Adrian?" "What are you talking about?" "Sweetie, you said Becky came running to you after I slipped, right?" "Yes, and I'm so grateful that she saw it because none of us heard you fall." "Great. Now, Becky, should I be the one to tell him, or will you do it yourself?" "What is she talking about, Mom?" Adrian asked, his voice full of suspicion. "Oh, I don't know. She just gave birth. She's probably just making things up. She's probably suffering from mommy brain. Lord knows I had a bad case of it after I gave birth to you. Do not even try to make this into something as arbitrary as that. Adrian, your mother pushed me down the stairs." "What?" "You remember how I went to check on Becky after she had been gone inside the house for a really long time?" "Yeah. Turns out she was in the house for so long because she wanted to find proof of me faking my pregnancy." "Why on earth would you be faking your pregnancy?" "Apparently, she thought I was stealing her spotlight." "I didn't say that." "Those were literally the last words you told me before you pushed me down the stairs." "Mom, is this true?" "Fine, I will admit that I was a little jealous of her, but you have to believe me when I say that I didn't think she was actually pregnant." "So you willingly endangered the life of my wife and my child because you didn't think something was true?" "Oh, come on, honey, she didn't even look that pregnant. How was I supposed to know? You can't just push people down the stairs. What if Sophia had hit her head hard enough to cause permanent damage? What would you have done then, huh?" "I don't know. I'm so sorry." "You know what? I don't want you here. I will talk to you after I figure out what is going on in my mind." Becky tried to stay longer, but Adrian was having none of it. All I felt when I looked at her was blinding rage. How could she do something like that to me and my baby? How could she even try to justify her actions? Adrian had Becky escorted out of our room and barred her from visiting me or the baby. He wouldn't stop apologizing for his mother afterward, but I told him he had no reason to apologize. He did nothing wrong, and in fact, did the right thing by cutting her out for now. It took a few days, and then I was discharged. Over the next 2 months, I received a lot of calls from family checking in on me and making sure the baby and I were okay. Adrian and I also spent a lot of time going back and forth to the hospital just to see that our son was doing well. It was a very stressful time. But thankfully, our families were very supportive and helpful in every way. Becky also tried to reach out to us, but we didn't care to respond. We wanted nothing to do with her, and we made that clear. She did not take it lightly, so we had to block her. Finally, after 2 months in the NICU, we were able to take our son home. I cried really hard when I finally got to hold my son, and so did Adrian. Just the thought that we almost lost him made me want to throw up. Word got around that we had brought our son home, and somehow, Becky found out too. She got herself another phone number just to be able to communicate with us. When she saw that we weren't answering those texts either, she decided the best thing to do was to come to our house unannounced. Thankfully, Adrian opened the door. If I had opened it, Lord knows I would have chewed her out and possibly even hurt her for the stress she put my family under. Becky looked haggard and older than when we last saw her. She had tears in her eyes as she begged Adrian to talk to her. "Please talk to me. Mom, you need to stop trying to contact us." "How can I not? My son won't talk to me, and I don't get to see my grandson." "You think you get to see our son? You don't think we're in pain from not being able to hold our little boy?" "I really am sorry. Please at least talk to me. I thought I was doing something right. How is pushing my wife down a flight of stairs the right thing to do? She's always been trying to steal everyone's attention. I see the way she tries so hard, and it's just so darn hard to keep my anger in check. You have no idea how insane you sound right now." "I do not. I was trying to do what was best for you." "Best for me? How is this best for me? I always knew you could do so much better than Sophia. I was just trying to get you to see that." "By almost killing my child and wife? Are you kidding me right now? What you did was not for me, but because you couldn't handle the fact that there was someone better than you in your family. Sophia is not better than me." "Oh, she is in every way. She cooks better food and has a much better temperament than you. Why do you think more of our family has started coming over to our place for Thanksgiving when we host? Nobody can stand you and your entitlement." "You take that back right this second. That is no way to speak to your mother." "Now I will speak to you the way you deserve to be spoken to. You made our lives a nightmare from the start, and I have been silent about it only because Sophia begged me not to damage my relationship with you." "Okay, I get it. I'm a horrible mother." "You are. You absolutely are. You're lucky that we're not going to the police about you hurting Sophia and our son." "Oh, please, like you have evidence of it. It'll be my word against hers." "Who said we didn't have evidence? Don't try and bluff me right now. Look, Sophia and I are exhausted, and we want this time to be as calm as possible. So for the foreseeable future, I do not want to hear from or see you again. Do you get it?" "You can't do that. I want to see my grandson too." "Oh, you are never seeing your grandson." "What? You have no idea how much our son is going to suffer thanks to your jealousy. The least I could do is make sure that he never meets the source of his problem. I will fight for my grandparents' rights." "Go for it. Bye." Adrian was mad that Becky still had the audacity to show up. If I were in her place, I would never have shown my face to my family, but hey, everyone's different, I guess. Becky did not give up on trying to contact us. Not only would she call and text us a whole bunch of times, but she would also show up at our doorstep and make a huge ruckus until we opened the door. So Adrian and I did the only sensible thing and got a restraining order against Becky. She once again did not like that, but I was so tired by this point that I really did not care. Thankfully, Adrian and I dealt with Becky just in time for us to take our son home. Let me tell you, holding him for the first time made me sob and feel so grateful that he was still alive. Adrian and I decided to use the next few months to just bond with our child. So we didn't let anyone come over to see the baby. Thankfully, after everything that happened, everyone was happy to comply. Becky, however, did not stop trying to bother us. One day, we actually received a summons to come to court because Becky was trying to fight for her grandparents' rights. That threw me into a blind rage. I couldn't believe that she was actually trying to claim grandparent rights when she almost killed me and the grandson she so desperately wanted to see. I asked Adrian to grab the evidence and we made our way to a lawyer's firm. We hired a good lawyer, showed him the evidence, and he told us that we could charge Becky even though we didn't want to do it earlier. After dealing with her harassment for months, we decided to press charges against her. The trial that followed was truly something out of a movie. Becky cried and sobbed at first, claiming we were neglecting her and not letting her visit her only grandson. I could tell that the jury was a little sympathetic towards her, but I knew I had the most incriminating piece of evidence for her. When the footage of her pushing me down the stairs played, everyone in the room went silent and Becky grew pale. After the first hearing, Becky blasted us with calls and texts accusing us of hiding the truth from her. We figured it was in the best interest to block her. After a couple of weeks, Becky was charged with attempted murder of an unborn child and was sentenced to 6 months in jail. All her appeals were denied, and Adrian and I couldn't have been happier. Of course, word got around in Adrian's family as well about what Becky had done. And let's just say that nobody wants anything to do with her anymore. She's going to have a tough time when she's done with her sentence. As for Adrian and me, we're gradually getting used to being first-time parents and loving every second of it. I'm just glad we get to do it stress-free. We are considering moving, but that's a decision to make for a later time. Thank you so much for listening. I lost my mother to illness when I was in elementary school. My father worked hard to raise me, and I loved him dearly for his gentle nature. When I married my husband Ethan, my father shed tears and said, "Please take good care of Lily." My only concern was Ethan's parents. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law graduated from prestigious private universities. They were true elites. My father-in-law had established his own company when he was young and made a fortune in one generation. However, not long after we married, the company went bankrupt because my mother-in-law, who was registered as an executive, spent too much of the company's money. Desperate, my in-laws suggested moving in together. "Clearly, we're going to have children, and we can't afford to support you," Ethan argued. Listening to my husband's words, I sighed with relief. Unless there was a need for caregiving, I wanted to avoid living with my in-laws. It seemed my husband felt the same. Then my father-in-law yelled, "Are you repaying the kindness of raising you with ingratitude?" My mother-in-law began to cry. "This is what happens when you marry a woman from a poor family. You've become rotten to the core." The conversation got nowhere. It was really impossible to live together, but maybe we could send some money. My husband suggested this, and although I glared at him, paying money meant we wouldn't have to live together. I chose the option that would lighten my mental burden, persuaded by my husband. However, this was the beginning of our troubles. The agreement was to provide $300 a month, but they kept asking for additional money every month, saying we can't pay for medical bills and medicine. Or my back hurts, so I need to go to a chiropractor. I doubted whether this was true, but I didn't feel like checking. If we refused, they might bring up living together again. I grappled with frustration but endured the constant begging for money. Our finances were barely making ends meet every month. That's why I started working part-time at a bar, leaving my young son Noah at the child care center. The bar paid well, and they let me take home leftover food. Somehow, we managed to stabilize our finances. When Noah turned 10, my husband was ordered to transfer by his company. Since the transfer was to a rural area, Noah and I considered moving with him. But my husband said, "It's better to be near your father," thinking of my father who lived alone. My father's house was about 20 minutes away by train, while the transfer location required the use of a bullet train. I decided to rely on my husband's words. While I worked at the bar, my father would take care of Noah. He seemed happy to spend time with his grandson. I would take home food from the bar, and my father, Noah, and I would gather around the dining table. Noah, who never warmed up to his paternal grandparents, was unreservedly affectionate with my father. My humble, grandson-loving father was the complete opposite of my in-laws. They would brazenly claim to be my parents, eat and drink as they pleased at the bar where I worked, and leave without paying. I ended up covering all their bills. Although they didn't come often, when they did, it was usually to show off to friends or juniors. Even though it was only once or twice a month, it still hurt to pay for them out of my part-time earnings. The manager often sent something and gave me substantial discounts, saying, "You're always working hard." I sometimes fantasized about splashing beer on them, imagining how satisfying that would feel. In the fall of Noah's junior year in high school, as he was preparing for university entrance exams, I received a call from my husband. "I can come home in the spring." "Really?" "Yeah, and with a promotion to boot. I really put you through a lot. Let's live happily together again, the three of us." Next spring was looking busy. As soon as I hung up, the electronic sound of an incoming call rang out. Thinking it was my husband, I answered without looking. "What?" I inadvertently let out a careless, deflated voice. "Hello, this is the city hospital," the caller explained in a tense voice. My father had collapsed and was taken to the hospital. He had stopped to buy Noah's favorite pudding at a convenience store and fainted in front of the cashier. I grabbed only my wallet and phone and rushed to the hospital. Although I couldn't get many details, I was told my father was in emergency surgery. "Dad," I called out to him, praying, "Please make it, please." When I arrived at the hospital, I gave the reception staff my father's name. I heard he's in surgery now. I pressed the staff at the front desk, drenched in sweat. Please head to the 4th floor. I was directed to the operating room. The surgery wasn't over yet, so I sat on the bench, praying and waiting. Several hours later, the doctor informed me the surgery was done. The diagnosis was a stroke. There would be a slight impairment in speech and motor functions, but I was nothing but grateful that his life was spared. Dad's condition gradually stabilized. During my free time, I visited the hospital, talking to Dad and even giving his immobile hand a massage. Dad, today Noah. I made sure to tell Dad all about Noah. His initial response was weak, but daily rehab was fruitful, and Dad started to show signs of recovery. One day, while massaging his hand as usual, Dad weakly grasped my hand. It was the first response since the surgery, and I was so happy that I cried. Dad, you did great. Then Dad slowly shook his head and pointed at me with a hand he could move. Thank you, he stuttered, smiling. He should have had difficulty moving his facial muscles, yet he smiled at me. Stroke aside, Dad seemed to have aged, becoming smaller. I recalled my father at my wedding, firmly shaking hands with my husband and saying, "Take good care of Lily." His strong, dependable hand had now become frail. Though it was my turn to protect him, I firmly grasped my thin father's hand, encouraging myself. I had to leave the hospital before evening because I had a part-time job at the bar. I hoped Dad continued to recover as I started my shift, full of hope. My in-laws were the first to enter when the shop opened. Lily dear, they called cheerfully, bringing along 2 men a bit older than themselves. I didn't care how they were related and didn't want to know. Following the restaurant's protocol, I led them to their seats. As soon as you sit, order as much as you like, said my father-in-law. Don't worry about the bill, added my mother-in-law, as if they wouldn't just push it onto me again. I focused on serving them, hiding my annoyance. I had just received good news about Dad, after all. The peaceful events at the hospital were ruined by the in-laws in front of me. They knew no bounds, ordering beer, soju, and sake one after another. The table was a mess with spilled drinks and food scraps. The 2 men they brought seemed drunk and started harassing me. Hey, wife, bring the beer quickly. What a shame, our daughter-in-law here, really such an incapable wife. My in-laws began to loudly criticize me on purpose. I tried to hold back since I was at work, but my heart couldn't contain it. Excuse me, customers, there are others here. Can you please quiet down a bit? I attempted a desperate counterattack, hoping that by speaking loudly enough for other customers to hear, it would embarrass my in-laws. It's just a party, who cares? That's what they mean by you can tell where someone's from. Look, your plate's open, ma'am. Fueled by alcohol, their remarks escalated. It seemed she was raised so carelessly because she has no mother. I was so entangled by my mother-in-law's words that I couldn't respond. I was already holding back at the edge of my limits from having my son Noah insulted, but now they were even mentioning my late mother. I've always wanted to splash beer on them, imagining defeating my in-laws like this had become part of my daily routine. That day, I was virtually pouring a bottle of flat beer over their heads in my imagination, of course. In January, Noah was accepted into his first-choice private university. On the day of the acceptance announcement, my husband also called with the happy news that he could come home the day before Noah's graduation ceremony. We would both be attending Noah's graduation. The night of the graduation, we had planned to celebrate Noah's success and my husband's promotion at the bar where I worked, but that meant we couldn't avoid inviting my in-laws. My father was still in the hospital, so he couldn't come, but ignoring my in-laws would cause problems later. I prayed they would be busy, but if they knew we were treating them, they would definitely come. They were such despicable people. When I called to invite them, sure enough, both agreed to come. Noah's new private university is known nationwide as a prestigious institution, and my father-in-law pompously said, "He inherited my genes. Well, see you on that day." I quickly ended the call. The night of Noah's graduation, I happily walked to the restaurant with my husband and Noah, the 3 of us together after a long time. The in-laws had already arrived by taxi. The restaurant manager had kindly prepared a private room for our celebration. Just thinking about my in-laws made my stomach ache, but I decided to smile as much as possible in front of the family and entered the restaurant. We took our seats and toasted with bottled beer for the adults and juice for Noah. Noah, congratulations, my husband smiled warmly at him. Congratulations on your promotion, I said to my husband, raising my glass. I'm really looking forward to college in the spring, Noah exclaimed. Here, this is from Grandpa. I handed Noah a cherry-colored envelope. Grandpa, of course, referred to my father. From Grandpa? Noah joyfully accepted the envelope. It's not much, but he said to enjoy college life. Grandpa prepared this celebration gift with a nurse's help. Even though his hands still aren't moving properly, I explained. Just knowing my father's feelings was enough. I had informed my in-laws over the phone that my father had a stroke and was hospitalized. They were out playing and responded only with a casual, "Oh, really?" Watching them, it suddenly hit me how indifferent they were. Speaking of which, it's really tough, huh? A stroke, my father-in-law said nonchalantly. I was used to it by now, so I brushed it off. Yes, it is, but the progress is good. My father-in-law didn't seem to like my indifferent attitude and mocked my Colette's father. It's a brain disease, right? His head's gone crazy, hasn't it? Noah's brow furrowed as he looked at his grandfather. Quick to counter, my husband spoke up. Is that any way to talk? But it's the truth, isn't it? Yes, it's a brain disease, right? The in-laws were not at all shaken by their son's argument. The boastful in-laws couldn't help but enjoy the misfortune of others. Just stop it, my husband began to say, but I held up my hand to his face. Then I splashed the lukewarm beer that was left in the glass right onto my father-in-law. The flat beer left in the bottle was poured over my mother-in-law. I could endure them speaking ill of me if it didn't reach Noah's ears. But I couldn't stand to hear them say that my father, who had raised me with all his might, was crazy. My father's hand had become so small. It was up to me to protect that hand. I glared at my in-laws. Don't mock my father. The in-laws were at a loss for words, having beer suddenly thrown on them. It was just a joke. Come on, father-in-law retorted in a low voice. My husband then countered, Dad, Mom. They slowly looked up at their son's voice. There's a reason why I invited you here today. My husband pulled out a single note from his wallet. He placed it where the in-laws could see it, like a slap in the face. On it was a detailed list of the in-laws' extravagant spending, a bus tour with friends, luxury spa treatments, purchasing designer bags, and much more. You can find out about this stuff easily, he said. The in-laws no longer tried to make eye contact. Everything my husband had found seemed to be true. If you can afford to live so luxuriously, you don't need our support anymore. I quickly followed up, cutting off my father's indecisive words. You don't need it, right? But just the allowance, mother-in-law pleaded. No, we won't send any more money. We're cutting ties too, my husband stated firmly. Please go home. My disheveled and soaked in-laws looked at me with stunned expressions. Please leave, I repeated, pointing to the exit. Under the pressure of my firm stance, my in-laws slithered out as if crawling on the floor. It seemed my husband knew everything. He knew the torment I was going through. Apparently, Noah would sometimes stop by the bar to say thanks for the meals, but embarrassed to be seen by me, he waited until I wasn't there. At that time, the manager had been reporting to Noah how I was being treated by my in-laws. It's hard to tell a child this, but please protect your mom, he was told. Noah had discussed this with my husband. My husband had declared that when he returned, he would sever ties and stop all financial support. However, he had asserted that it would only be carried out once he was back, since he couldn't protect Noah or me when he was away. And so my husband stopped the payments as promised. Every day, my in-laws called, probably to demand the money before cutting ties completely. I unleashed everything I wanted to say to my in-laws. There was nothing to fear since I was ending this relationship. After ending the call unilaterally, I blocked my in-laws' contact. A few days later, my in-laws seemed to have asked my part-time jobs manager to help them get in touch with me. They did this multiple times during business hours. The manager, annoyed, lost his temper. Don't ever come back to our store, he yelled, throwing an empty beer bottle and chasing them out. In the conversation between my in-laws at that time, I heard words like payments and monthly installments, so it seems they were likely taking cash advances or making installment payments, unable to lower their standard of living. Serve them right. I'm now working at the second bar opened by the manager. He made arrangements to ensure that my in-laws couldn't harm me if they came to the store. My father will be discharged from the hospital soon, and it's decided that we'll live together in this house. My husband and Noah both fully agreed. As I cleaned the room that will be dedicated to my father, I thought back to his small hands.